welcome to Fast Forward. I'm Dan Costa, editor-in-chief of PCMag.com, and this is where we have conversations about living in the future. My guest today is Chetan Dube, the president and CEO of IPSoft. IPSoft is a company that specializes in AI solutions that, quote, provide predictable business benefits through intelligent automation. We're going to talk about what's going on in the current state of AI. We're going to talk about how automation could affect the workforce. And we're going to talk about how AI is ultimately going to transform not just business, but the economy itself. Chetan, thanks so much for doing this with me.
Thank you very much, Dan.
So we're at your offices, and researching this, I think of IPSoft as a relatively new company. AI is super hot right now. Everybody's talking about it. But IPSoft has actually been around for 20 years now, and that's a lot longer than most AI companies that are out there.
That's very true. In fact, we were just recently reminded that we are the company that brought the first digital employee to the market. 5 years ago, when Amelia was born, there was no other chatbot in the market. And we were the ones that tried to see that, are we heading into a world where the boundaries between carbon-based organisms like you and I and silicon-based organisms like Amelia will get progressively diffused. And we believe that Amelia has started to diffuse those lines, and the fundamental platform for how services are rendered is shifting. Last decade, it was about shifting it from labor to cheaper labor, and this decade is about shifting it from labor to digital labor. And Amelia is emblematic of that shift in the marketplace.
So let's talk about Amelia, because you describe her as a chatbot. And there may have been a time when she was a chatbot and was a basic conversational interface, but she's done much more than that. And talk to me, how would you describe and sum up what Amelia is?
Amelia is the most human AI in the market, if you would allow me to be direct. It is the one that is the most sincere abstraction of human way of thinking, providing service, of reasoning, how we actually use the semantic memory, the affective memory, the episodic memory, the process memory of human brains to be able to compile thoughts, and how we are the versatile customer agents, which most others are not. You cannot fake that. If you want to provide human equivalent level of customer service, you need to be able to emulate the way humans are able to take every utterance coming in and process it to be able to provide a contextually aware response. And Amelia is emblematic of that. Today she's serving 1 in every 10 global 1,000 company for their conversational intelligence needs. I would like to believe that she's more than a chat agent. She is reflective of how humans can provide service. Often we hold the bar at, is she going to provide superior service? If you take, for instance, Allstate, for about a call volume of about 3.1 million calls coming year to date, you have had service done by humans at 4.6 minutes time to resolution, done when assisted by Amelia at 4.2 minutes. The first time rights, when done by humans, was 67%. When assisted by Amelia, was 75%. So the bar should be at human level of intelligence. And isn't that what artificial intelligence is defined as? The ability to mimic human intelligence, no?
Mm-hmm. These were the original tests. The Turing test was designed to do just that.
That's exactly right. And that has haunted me. I mean, I think you talked about 2 decades. The IPSoft started with the sincere persuasion. When you open up Turing's thesis, the first sentence of it all starts with, I propose for you to consider the question, can machines think? What if thinking machines were really possible? And I'm talking sincerely thinking machines, not the chatbots that you see in the market today, which are just IVR 2.0. Chris Fitzgerald of NTT, the global CTO, calls it IVR 2.0 because it is nothing but the same decision trees that we are walking down, and you find yourself in an inflexible environment and yelling representative, and you find the system not understanding you in a contextually rich manner. But as opposed to that, real thinking machines that diffused how humans think and machines think. What if, as Turing had said about 6.5 decades ago, what if such machines were possible? What would the world look like? And that question has haunted my research for now over 2 decades. And I hope that Amelia is going to be the first one that answers an affirmative to that question.
I think one of the things that people need to understand is that Amelia is available and widely used today. Like, this is not a future technology, and there will be a future for her, and she'll be able to do more and more over time as the product evolves. But there's a lot of people that are interacting with her every day, and people may not know that it's her servicing the back end. Can you talk about like what that average experience looks like and what makes Amelia's customer service so great?
6 out of the top 10 banks, Dan, to your point, are today leveraging Amelia. You have all incoming exceptions in one of the largest Swiss banks are being handled and funneled through Amelia. You have credit card volumes in the largest bank here that has got credit card volumes soaring up to 1.2 billion credit card calls coming in a year, being gradually shifted into being handled more and more by Amelia. So to your point, and 7 out of the top 10 insurance companies. And what are they doing typically, you asked the question. So this is the difference here is that it's more than chat agents, which are just providing you FAQ kind of services or just happy case scenarios or tell me a thing about my policy or can I register this claim. Those are happy case scenarios. 86% of the exceptions that happen are not happy case scenarios. You're not calling for peaches and candy when you're calling in for service. So what you really see in the market, what kind of things are happening in the banking that Amelia is doing today, from account management, typical account opening, origination. In one of the largest banks in Sweden, for instance, more originations happen through Amelia than through their regular employees there. So account openings, originations, account handling, transfer balances, all of those things, credit cards. Then going into mortgage processing. You see Barclays originations are 62% through mobile interface. And then heading into the zone of wealth management. UBS for retirement wealth planning, for instance, leverages Amelia to be able to say how we can actually better, depending on your risk profile, help you with that. Then extending into the short-term liability management. So the entire spectrum of conversational banking. How can you, now the difference in banking world, what the banking world will look like, if you're not going to just have a banker that is saying, I do these things that I could anyway do with my online interface. Because you could go to the hamburger menu and you could transfer this, you could do the mortgage payment, and you could do the credit card payments, you could do all of that.
The user can direct the action themselves.
Yeah, and that could be done. So what's so different about conversational banking as opposed to online banking and digital banking? And what is so different about what Amelia is able to drive in the quality of outcomes and value creation in conversational banking? You don't say to your imagine if you had a personal banker in your pocket. You would say, check if my Con Ed bill is due, and could you make that payment? Could you make sure that, and by the way, when I do that, I see that you might, on your checking, you're running low, and I think I want to try and enroll you in overdraft protection. But you've heard of that sometimes. But now if I also, as a conversational banker, I say, I see that you've got $7.5 million, Dan, parked in your money market account. If I move it to short-term CD.
And I do.
I'm sure, hey, the editor-in-chief of PCMag, you're one of the bigwigs there. So if you move it into a short-term 3-month CD, I could get you 4,600 more as interest. You have a real wealth manager, real banker in your pocket that is doing all your banking, that is meeting all your banking needs, as opposed to just doing the classic hamburger menu equivalent, which is online/digital banking. And that's what Amelia, for instance, is doing. So I would beg your forgiveness for the elaborate answers to the question about the impact that she's having. There's pilots are a dime a dozen in the marketplace. How many of them are actually handling production volumes of Allstate, 3.1 million year to date, and the 1.2 billion credit card trending into that kind of zones of transaction handling? That's where Amelia is different. That's, if in one word, if I were to sum what is the differentiating characteristic of Amelia, it's outcomes. And that's why her adoption is at the level where she's been classed as the leading AI agent by all analyst communities.
So let's talk in terms of reaching those outcomes, because I think that's always been the promise of AI, is that AI will help us understand things that we can't quite understand ourselves, even if it's as basic as my bill is due, and if I don't pay it, my credit rating's going to take a hit. Amelia could know that in advance and say, look, you probably want to pay this bill now, because if you wait till tomorrow, you're going to lose 20 points on your credit rating.
That's right.
And that could be motivating.
Yeah.
But the question I think comes is who creates those outcomes? And are these big banks going to create outcomes that help save you money and help protect your credit report and take care of your financial interests? Or is it going to be the experience we get on customer service calls many times with real humans, where it's like, oh, thanks for calling in. Can I now sell you something else?
Yeah.
Can I get you to sign up for something else? Yeah. And it seems like if the banks are programming the interface and the AI, they're going to have their own motives and they're going to pursue their own goals. Mm-hmm. So how do you sort of walk that balance?
Well, the difference is that, so as we have experience with 6 out of the top 10 banks I shared with you, and do you know the largest bank, for instance? And what we are finding is very interesting to your point. It's like you hand over the keys to a space shuttle to all these different banks. They fly it at different speeds. And you're finding that they are all, I'll give you an example. The largest bank in Nordics is only 15 months old. Would you believe that? Klarna, 76 million subscribers to date. Entire Sweden has 11 million people. And just think about it. The fact of the matter is that, why? Because Klarna is using Amelia to diffuse the boundaries between retail and banking. So how is it being used, and how is it being differently used? To your point, imagine if you bought this set of shoes, and those are good shoes and red laces, and let's say you were not too fond of the red laces, and you said you wanted to return those shoes. Today, you've got to package them up, RMA something, go to FedEx or something and ship it back. And somewhere 4 to 6 weeks later, your bank will hopefully issue you a credit, or you have to follow up and say, like, well, where was my credit for my shoe, if you remember. Klarna. One click, Dan Costa says, I don't like red laces on my shoes. And you get instant credit. How? Through the digital undercurrency of embedded banking, you can really start to diffuse the boundaries that have existed between these different verticals that can now be, I can say, I know Dan Costa, I can underwrite him. And I can actually talk to the merchants here on the retail side, and I can do the banking for him, and I can just say, I underwrite you instantly, and I'll deal with the merchant in making sure that your shoes get shipped back to him. And now for you, the largest bank in Sweden, for instance, one of the ones that uses Amelia for origination and other things account, I was being hosted in Stockholm for a very nice view of the harbor there as well. And their CEO, with a very nice veal lunch, I still remember just a few months back, said to me, oh, my wife loves Klarna. And I turned to him and I said, Johan, you might want to reconsider that. But you can start to see that the banks are, in AI technology, it's not going to be such that it's just the same color. The differences in the way the people are using AI technologies to be able to come up with, and that's what should happen. You now have a core platform for intelligence. How you use it, your differentiation lies at the edge. It doesn't lie at the core of that intelligent platform. You take that intelligent platform and you start to build embedded banking. You take that intelligent platform and you start to build, oh, I'm going to go into adjacencies here. You take that intelligent platform and you start to say, like, Here's how I'm going to improve my Net Promoter Score with all the customers that I service. And here's how I'm going to try and say that I'm going to go into all the different verticals where I couldn't play, because I'm holding a large part of these banking philosophies today is that as long as I've got your digital payment currency, don't I have you? It doesn't matter if you want to go to retail, or if you want to go get medical supplies, or if you wanted to go to any of the other verticals. I have got the digital undercurrency of the payment tokens, and I will always be the underbelly. And so they are the users. We see it's fascinating how fast these models are developing and what kind of dramatic impact it can have. Such an enabling technology, what it can have in the consumer experience. As the experience with Klarna shows. Klarna right now is having 363 concurrent conversations with one conversational intelligent agent.
So this will be a point of differentiation amongst banking and financial providers.
Absolutely. And Musk is right on that one. He's the subject of a lot of speculation lately, but he's right about that. If your competition has got AI and you don't, you're dead.
It's the digital competition all over again.
Yeah.
Like there were banks that didn't want to go online and thought they could go without it, and they were proven wrong.
That's exactly right. You're spot on, and you have written about it, so I think your knowledge in this dwarfs mine.
And so in moving beyond banking, I've heard I've seen what you've written about different applications for AI and possibly Amelia in particular. You did an interview with Monsignor Lucio Adrian Ruiz, the communication director at the Vatican.
Yeah.
And the two of I read the transcript of your conversation, and there were some fascinating ideas in there about how the idea of a digital emissary could be like a cultural attaché that doesn't have anything to do with banking, but it fascinated me, and I kind of want to know more about those types of applications.
Yeah, so the Vatican was the last, recently had come calling for Amelia. We discovered that the Vatican receives 1.2 million calls a day, and could definitely...
So what are people looking for when they call the Vatican?
They mostly when the Pope's appearance is going to be, when the service is going to be, and so very informative questions, and not forgive me, Father, I've sinned, because those are different kind of questions.
That's a different line.
Yeah, that's...
We'll give you another number for that.
So exactly, and I think that so he was kind enough. The Pope was kind enough to send his director of communications and the head of which he had joined us just in June, which you're referring to. And a big question there becomes, what should be the ethics? And if you look at, like in England, last 2 weeks ago I was in England, and that's a big focus of England, is what should be the boundaries of moral compass and ethics that we should place on such artificial intelligence agents. But I think they're used, if you think about it, global citizens, for instance, Hugh Evans, their CEO, their mandate mission is to eradicate poverty by 2030. Global citizens. Well, that's an ambitious mission statement. And if you talk to Hugh, who's quite motivated at doing that, he still is limited by the number of people that can actually reach out and talk to different people and get them enlisted in the cause, because in the end, if you really have that loftier goal, you need to be able to create a mass movement. Well, ask Hugh who's the best at trying to be an emissary of that cause. Can an artificial intelligence agent come along and start to enlist people in a cause and say, what is your calling, Dan? What is it that you motivate? Are you really motivated by, say, clean water for Africa, or eradicate child hunger in Indonesia? And so those things are, Amelia is being groomed to be the latest emissary for global citizens, I meant, forgive me. And so those are the kind of things that you can find that Amelia can do in furthering such missions, whether it is from the Vatican or from global citizens. She's very effective at carrying the good word of the Lord, or of Hugh in this case.
Are you worried, you can control what causes Amelia gets used for, because it's your company. Are you at all worried that other companies or other actors will create AIs that are not spreading the good word, that may be spreading the bad word or a different word? Like, is that something we also need to make room for in our understanding of what is possible with AI?
You know, you're spot on with that. There's always, but it's since the times, at the start of all times, there's always been the good and the bad, and the good and evil have existed in the garden of our lives. I think that we really have to see, can the good always trump the evil part? Will AI technologies be used by some nations, particularly in the classic bloc, the Soviet bloc, the old one, for warfare, for other things? Absolutely. But should we keep a leg up on those nations? Because you are not going to stop some nations from using this for. And people often say, like, is it a good thing or a bad thing? Can we just, maybe we shouldn't do that because, we're heading into the Hawking world of it's going to be the final invention known to mankind. And the views are very polar. You're either the utopian view, it's going to, the global citizens, it's going to cure world hunger and there's going to be world peace. And then there is the dystopian view, it's going to be the end of mankind. It's the. I ask a third question. Do we have a choice?
The bell has been rung, and it can't be unrung.
Do we have a choice? Dan, I have yet to meet a single, and I've had the privilege of meeting like in 7 out of the top 10 banks, their CEOs I've met. I have yet to meet a single CEO as socially conscious, and I believe all of them are very socially conscious. As socially conscious as they are, I've yet to meet a single CEO that says, oh, I can have 45% margin enhancement by deploying this technology against a 35% margin compression, as estimated by McKinsey, if I don't have this technology. I have a spread of 80% between deploying this technology and not deploying this technology, which essentially amounts to existential threat. Let me think. I'm not so sure if I want to go this way. But 80% spread, do you not have a tiger by the tail? You either, if you don't deploy AI and your competition has got AI, are you not in the Musk dead zone where you have to battle this margin erosion as compared to the margin enhancement that the other person is going to get? So the question, I really, do we have a choice? I think it is, machines are here. The challenge for man is how do we gainfully use them? And how do we control our destinies? Not how do we try to say like, no, let's not. And when they are so significantly more efficient at doing common chores, can man be in the driver's seat? Should we not be focusing our energies and our faculties at like making sure that we continue to be in the driver's seat? We continue to do the things that you have advocated about doing, the good and driving good outcomes, more so than the bad outcomes that will be in some errant cases you'll be driving. So that's where I believe that this discussion, the outcomes of this discussion should be written by man in the driver's seat, as opposed to, well, let's stop you're not going to stop this. Even if you liken it to a tsunami, you cannot be sitting on the beaches of Phuket thinking that it's sunny outside. There's a 100-foot wall of water that is coming straight at you. You must move to higher ground. And then it's a most benign tsunami because it actually cleans up. Would you like to do, are you a subscriber to the Mark Twain concept of like a life without a mark might as well not have been lived? Tell me one person who might have tightened the same nut and bolt throughout his entire life and could say to you, actually, I would not have liked a more creative job. I would have liked to do just grow old doing the same nut and bolt tightening. Can a person say to me that I would not have liked a more fulfilling job that is more creative? Human brain is the ultimate Darwinian engine. It has, on a given day, are you, sir, not shackled? I ask you. On any given day, even you, as the editor-in-chief of one of the major publications that can influence so many thoughts, even you, sir, use only 20% of your creative brain on a given day.
Creative brain. And that's a good day.
A good sense of humor, and that's creative, for instance. There is 80% of the time, Dan, you're doing the mundane chores. You're cleaning the floor, you're vacuuming, you're driving the car, you're doing common tasks, filling out expense sheets. All these chores, are you not shackled by the ordinary? Can machines come along and liberate a mind like yours to only focus on the creative? And what kind of a beautiful world will you begin to create if you could only focus on the creative and not have to be brought down by the shackles of ordinary?
I think that's an excellent point, and I don't think, by and large, most people are tied to those nut bolt tightening jobs. I don't think they're necessarily tied to the coal mining jobs.
That's right.
Or the telemarketing jobs, but I think they don't know and they don't feel secure that there'll be something waiting for them on the other side. And I think at least now in this country and even globally, I don't know that we have helped them see what is waiting for them or charted a path for them to get up that hill to avoid the tsunami. And what is it going to take to help get all these people off the beach and up on the hill?
You. The power wielded by the editors-in-chief has never been more profound. If you do not wake up the masses to this wave of digital transformation that is coming, is here, not coming, is here, who else will? And then that man will be caught on the wrong foot because the speed of the transformation is that fast that man will scramble up that hill. I should, while we are elaborating on this tsunami, I continue to believe this is a very benign tsunami. It cleans up all the crud. So man will be caught on the wrong foot in the scramble up to higher forms. Find me a call center agent that says, I've been fielding the same credit card calls for the last 20 years, people calling and yelling all the time about something with their credit cards, and I find it most rewarding. I wouldn't want to be doing something which is like, transformative banking. I wouldn't want to be able to do something which is like even painting and impressionistic or surrealism, or I just want to be able to field credit card calls for 20 years. Is that a good use of a man's 88 billion neurons that are so creative and can think in such creative ways and can come up with more ways of designing better systems? Is that a good use? And even if a person is given to doing, I just like to be able to do the same credit card calls, he still should be encouraged by technology to use those faculties that only man has been gifted. Why do you rule this world while there are many more powerful animals than you? You look like a very well-built man, but I wouldn't put you in a cage with a tiger. You rule this world because of your neocortex. That's the only difference. The wiggly stuff on top of your brain, the basic brain of all the faculties and senses in every animal. But you have got the neocortex. What does the neocortex give you? Thinking. Je pense, donc je suis. I think, therefore, and that's very true for man and man's ability to dominate this world today. And we must continue to leverage that, and we must continue to extend his command over, and we must continue to extend his command over the machines as well. And that's why man stays in the driver's seat, as opposed to man saying, no, well, this is a good thing. Well, let's try and see. Ostrich algorithm will not work. You can't bury your head in the sand and say that it's sunny.
So in terms of, it seems like in this wave of automation, a lot of the benefits of automation maybe have gone to individuals who can now work at a higher level, but a lot of the profits and benefits have gone to corporations who are now operating at record high margins, generating record profits with relatively few human beings in the organizations. Yep. You look at how much revenue Facebook generates for the number of employees compared to a Ford, and it's an order of magnitude, fewer employed individuals. Is there an obligation on the business's part to pay back into the system or somehow help people get up that hill?
Excellent question. And we've been invited by the England and UK, the House of Commons, and they have a view on this topic. We were invited similarly in France by the Senate there. to talk about this issue in Palais du Luxembourg, and they have a separate philosophy on this. And I feel that that's exactly the question that we should be thinking about is, should we be taxing it? We know the productivity is going to go up. These machines are going to be very efficient. They are very efficient. They're going to drive up at least 40% at full maturity productivity, and GDP will go up.
Like corporate productivity?
Yeah, total
not
GDP
individual employee productivity.
Total GDP will have a surge. Over a decade, you would see it surging up to like 40%, and the world GDP will go up. The question is, how do we redistribute that gains? And exactly, very, very insightful question. Should we come up with the concept that Nordic countries have been exploring, and Finland has another vote on the MVI, the minimum viable income? And should we be taxing AI? Well, carbon-based organisms like you and I are taxed. Why shouldn't silicon-based brethren of ours also be taxed? What should be the rate of such taxation? And France states that the whole purpose of artificial intelligence is so that man may spend more time à la plage, at the beach. And so should we make sure that these machines are able to be taxed enough so that man can do the creative thinking and be sitting at a nice beach by Monte Carlo? And
although, to be fair, the tsunami is going to hit the beach first. So that's the way we've set it up.
Continuing with that analogy, yeah, you're right. That would be not a prudent choice to go. But I would say that, so should we be taxing AI? The question is, how do we redistribute this wealth that is going to get created? You're spot on. And how do we democratize the advantages of AI? You're spot on. It can be done through taxation. It can be done through minimum viable income. It can be done by looking at the things that are produced by these machines should be shared amongst not the corporations. Corporates have a responsibility of making sure that they distribute some of the wealth. Now, these are all, as I told you, both in England and in fact even in India, where we met with the Prime Minister's office, all countries that we have been invited to talk about this have been actively investigating that question in different ways. But you're spot on. That's a very interesting question.
So I want to be cognizant of your time. I've got 3 closing questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show. You certainly seem like a technological optimist, particularly when it comes to AI. But is there a technological trend that concerns you the most, or something that keeps you up at night?
I feel that man's ability to underestimate the impact of these machine intelligence and the speed with which they are moving really concerns me. I was walking my son, Montgomery, down to get the newspaper. On a hill, so we were walking down to the gate to get to the newspaper, and we picked up the paper, and he turns to me and he said, "Dad, are you going to be a robo-dad?" That certainly concerns me. I do not wish to be a robo-dad. I feel I'm very impassioned about trying to do my little cent and a half to leave behind a better planet than what I was put here.
What do you think he meant by a robo-dad?
Robo-dad, haven't you seen all of the movies? I mean, it's odd, none of them end up good. So I don't think, but I think that the machines are moving and moving very fast. And that's where I have a great deal of appreciation, and almost I would say the mandate rests on certain editors-in-chief who are capable of waking up the masses to this new era that's dawning upon us. And, people talk about it, and, we were talking to Financial Times and the Telegraph last week in London, and they said, there was always an escape for man. When machines came along, we said, like, when we were farming, then there was like, okay, we'll go to production lines. We'll now be making steam engines. We were doing farming earlier when the 1800s happened. And this time, there's no escape for man. What does man do? That's the difference there. The size of this revolution is 14.6 trillion. The first industrial revolution, by various, depending on which economist you subscribe to, is 1.5 trillion. So you're looking at a 10-fold impact. The time for that first industrial revolution in the 1800s was about 55 years. This one, 9 years. Tenfold impact, do the math, in 1/5 the time. That speed concerns me and keeps me up at night, that man's inability to be prepared. And where's the escape? Where's the next? Where does man go? We are going to create a very different, new, algorithmic world. We're just starting to build this algorithmic world. All the faculties of 7.5 billion people on this planet are required to gainfully engage in this algorithm so that we can drive unique efficiencies in this planet that could not have otherwise, and become what has been classed by others as multiplanetary species. And that's really where man should be spending more of his energies. And we have got infinite amount of things. It's 1% of the curve. For people to say like, oh, where do we go? This is the end of the cliff. It's just, forgive me, but it's short-sighted, because there is an entire set of the brains that are required for driving these AI and algorithms forward as the economies become more algorithmic-centric. 70% of the trades done in Goldman are done by algorithms today. So aren't we moving into that direction? Most of the cars are going to be driven by algorithms. So we're moving, and we're just starting in this direction. And we will need all the people in this planet to be actually able to drive, because they are only capable of driving that. So that does keep me up at night, that the speed is so fast, it's 10 times faster in 1/5 the time, so 50 times the flux. And if people like you, as I submitted to you, do not wake up the masses, then I fear that man, particularly in some of the labor-centric economies, will be caught scrambling. Because human brain will evolve. It's the greatest Darwinian engine, but it has to be given time to repurpose and reskill itself. Sir, you have to wake up the masses.
I will do my best. Let me ask you this, and you can answer, Amelia, if you want, but is there a product or service or technology that you use every day that still inspires wonder in you?
Well, I would tend to go with your favorite, Amelia, in this case. But I would say Amelia is the starting point. To me, the thing that really is remarkable, the thing that I find most fascinating engine that we use today is the human neocortex. That is amazing. How we are able to, I'll give you a simple example. And the more I've studied it, the more I'm fascinated by it. How you're able to form a certain thought. And we are talking about AI. Certain sections of your brain are completely lit up right now. And there's literally a chemical reaction happening, and these electrical impulses are traveling through certain sections of your brain. And over a period of time, they're beta attenuating, and they are fading away. So this part of your brain. Suddenly, if I say, hey, I know that you've got, how about the Red Sox this time? And you could have a hate or love relationship with them, but I know that a separate section of your brain is lit up now. And this one is fading and beta attenuating, and this section is lit up. Theory of spread activation, how you have completely context switched now. And you might have strong sentiments when I say 16:1 with that, and you might be like, yeah, that wasn't a good thing for any Yankee. But I would say you're in a completely different context. And if I go back to the topic of AI, you're able to again light up those sections of the neuron, and you're able to have a very stateful switch. What an amazing machine. I mean, how would you not hold this in just complete wonder and say, the more you study it, the more you are just enthralled by it, and the more you think that its prowess is to change. I mean, we're one little grain of sand on a beach, and we have just started to explore like planets around us. I think there's going to be a vast future for human brains, 88 billion neurons, to be gainfully employed in exploring the vastness of our universe.
Very good. So if people want to follow you, they want to follow IPsoft, how can they find you online?
Oh, IPsoft.com is where they can find, I am just Dube at IPsoft.com.
Chetan Dube, thank you so much for doing this. This is a very informative conversation.
Oh, likewise,
I appreciate
Dan,
it.
thank you very much for having me here.
That's Fast Forward for today. If you want to see past episodes, you can find them on PCMag.com, on iTunes, and anywhere fine podcasts are given away for free. If you are listening on iTunes, we appreciate it if you give us a vote up. Always appreciate those. In the meantime, I will see you in the future.